Evening, everyone, and welcome to our Lebanon City Council meeting, Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. Please call the roll.
Mayor Brewer.
Here.
Mrs. Monroe.
Here.
Ms. Wyatt.
Here.
Mr. Shope.
Here.
Mr. Matthews.
Here.
Vice Mayor Messer.
Here.
Mr. Schaefer.
Here.
Please stand for our invocation and pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we are here as your creation and as your children. We ask, as your children, Father, that you would help us to make wise decisions, that you would help us to love each other and to love everyone around us. And Father, we pray that you would just give us insight and leadership to that we might follow you, so that we might provide a good city for everyone to dwell in. Bring glory to your name. That's our main goal, is to bring glory to your name. And so help us to do that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if council would first take a look at consideration of regular meeting minutes December 8th, 2020, and a motion to adopt.
Also moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion or comment? Please call the roll.
Ms. Wyatt.
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Shope.
Yes.
Mayor Brewer.
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer.
Yes.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes.
And consideration of work session meeting minutes, there are none, so we will go ahead and move on to recognition of visitors. We have Reverend Karen Schaefer, who is going to come up and talk about MLK Day. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Brewer. Just to thank all of you for recently passing a resolution to continue our city on the path toward liberty and justice for all. And it's such a timely day to invite all of you to participate in the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of celebration, because I know that you're continuing your work to move forward toward the actions that resolution points toward, and we're happy to support that movement forward through the coalition. We want everyone to know that the event this year on Martin Luther King Day at 7 p.m. on this Monday, January 18th, is a virtual event. So you can get all of the information about it and even sign up to register for the event. Although you don't have to register, you can watch it on YouTube. Just join in at 7 p.m. on Monday and watch. It's going to be an absolutely wonderful event. We have, of course, words from our mayor, and we have the theme, Standing Up to Hate with Love, in the spirit of service and unity in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we ask you to please join us and let everyone else know that it's going on. It's very much a musical evening, so there are going to be several musical performances. The Voices of Warren County, the Mass Choir of Bethel AME Church in Middletown, Reverend Phyllis Clemens and Mrs. Carmen Dyer all will be providing music during that celebration, so we hope that you come. You know that the MLK Day is a day of service, as well as the evening celebration. During that weekend, in the day of and following, there are a number of service opportunities in the community. The Artscape Lebanon is offering a virtual art workshop. So you can learn more about that by following them on Facebook. There will be food distribution at the Warren County Fairgrounds, and there are volunteers needed for that. So also on our website at mlklebanon.org, you can also find the place to register to be a volunteer on that evening. There will be a Martin Luther King Community Coalition of Lebanon volunteer orientation on Monday, January 18th at 11 o'clock in the morning. Again, on the website, those who are interested in being a part of the coalition can go on and register for that orientation to learn more about the work of the coalition. At 2 p.m. on the 18th, there will be a kickoff planning meeting for the MLK Earth Day virtual 5K event. So anyone who's interested in helping with that event can go right on the website and sign up for that planning. All of these are virtual events, so that will be through Zoom. The following day, on January the 19th, there is a National Day of Racial Healing Community Discussion. Space is limited for that, but again, you can connect to and register for that. That is an event that Laura Stanton from OSU Family and Consumer Sciences Extension Educator, the Extension Office, if you will, is partnering with MLK and are providing that on the 19th. So we encourage everyone to come and be a part of the MLK Day ecumenical community celebration in the evening, but also to connect with us in a variety of ways and encourage other people to volunteer and be a part of this as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One thing I would like to say is, I'm sad that we can't all be together as we have in the past to actually all be a part of it. But I'm glad I got to be a part of it virtually and reading the proclamation. And I think when I was right before I came in, it was at Carmen. You all had a little bit of tears because you were so moved by her singing, and so I really look forward to hearing that. I did share it, and everybody that is on social media, I did share the event today. But if we could all just continue to share that to get the word out, would be really helpful. I'm interested also, you said on your page about volunteering, being able to do that, so I'll have to take a look at that because I'd be interested in helping with that as well. So appreciate it, and thanks for all the hard work. I know, Ray.
Ray is
thank
our
you
coordinator. And
for organizing all that, and for Joe Hackman to be a part of that as well, to video or tape everyone to put the program together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have another visitor. And you know what, Leslie, I want to make sure, just please come on up to the microphone, and I want to make sure that your name is pronounced correctly. So if you would just introduce yourself and give us your address just for the record. And thanks for
Certainly.
being here.
My name is Leslie Nahigian. I'll
Thank
answer
you.
to anything close. I live at 517 Heritage Trace. I've been a resident of Lebanon now for 17 years. I'm a registered nurse in the state of Ohio, going on 24 years now. And I'm here tonight again to bring some COVID updates and ask for your support and help. We're seeing that cases in Ohio, the number of deaths, hospitalizations, and ICUs are again higher than our 21-day trend. Hospitals in our area, Zone 6, are at an ICU capacity of about 93%. We're seeing hospitals that have to cancel procedures not related to COVID, so it doesn't just affect patients with COVID, it affects the whole system of care. We're seeing holds again in the emergency room, and that's not optimal for patient safety or patient care. It might interest residents of Lebanon to know how many cases we've had in Warren County. As of today, there were 15,925 confirmed COVID cases. 2,705 of those were in our own zip code of 45036. We've had 130 deaths in that zip code. I would also share that R value that we talked about last time, which is a measure of contagiousness, did drop a little bit between the last time I came to see you and tonight. Unfortunately, it's back to 1.2. We're seeing test positivity rates in Ohio of almost 14%. What happens over the next couple of weeks will be really important in our ability to control this virus and its spread. So again, masks are a great way to protect yourself and others, worn over your nose and your mouth. A multi-layer mask is important anytime you can't ensure 6 feet of distance between you and others or when you're inside. We do have some light at the end of the tunnel. There are vaccines available. Feel fortunate to be a healthcare worker and have received the first dose of the Moderna vaccine. A little bit of injection site pain for a few days, but less uncomfortable than my flu shot and certainly less uncomfortable than the Shingrix vaccines that I've had. So I know that that's not a vaccine that everyone is comfortable with. There will be more traditional vaccines coming in March and April. Even once we're vaccinated, we still need to mask. The vaccine doesn't create some sort of barrier in our airways. So it doesn't kill the virus on contact. It is still possible once you're vaccinated, even if you have immunity for the disease, you can still be colonized, have those viral particles in your airway, and spread those to others. Transmission, you can also spread after you've had the virus. So, again, appreciate anything that you can do to encourage masking, encourage distancing. It's kind of our ethical obligation to ensure that our behavior doesn't expose others to risk.
Just, you mentioned 130 deaths in our zip code, but as of Tuesday, there were 115 deaths in the entire county?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean Warren County, 130 Warren County.
In the county. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else did a question or anything? Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and have a public hearing. Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know, Mark, do we need to read in the public hearing?
Yeah. So we need a motion to open the public hearing regarding text amendments to the multiple chapters of the official zoning code ordinances.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objection? Meeting's open, or the hearing's open.
Okay, thank you. Greg Oros, our city planner, I know council received this presentation at the work session last week, but we wanted to also provide it for the public. So Greg Oros is going to kind of run through the key changes, amendments that are being proposed in the text amendment. So Greg?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Anytime. Okay, once again, City Council initiated these text amendments as part of the comprehensive planning process. This was an early review to go over and address any immediate concerns that was expressed by City Council, also developers and residents as well. Most of the revisions are to streamline the development process, but we do include some character issues that were coming up from folks in the comprehensive planning process as well. For administrative process, I kind of have each of these slides separated by, there are different parts in the zoning code. So we are asking to change all public notice requirements from 30 days to 20 days. We did some peer review and the average is around 15. So I think we're even safe with 20. That's the advertisement in the paper because you got to get it in at least a week in advance. So that's pushing projects out to 5 weeks for folks. Change all expiration dates to 1 year. Right now it's a random amount of days, 90 days, or like 6 months. This does 1 year for all expiration dates for approved plans. And then it gives staff the authority to extend for 1 year. Right now, if they go past that 1 year, they got to come back to Planning Commission, and it's almost like a rubber stamp. This allows a 1 year extension based on staff review. Consolidate administrative review procedure just to make it a little more simple. And we talked a little bit about the administrative review and approved plans for changes less than 15%. This was what we went over last time, but I figured I would do the actual language that was in there for Ms. Monroe here, had concerns about kind of, it was a little more up in the air. So I think this is for every PUD concept plan, regulatory plan, and approved site plan that you could, staff could review changes up to 15% of the overall site layout, density, or individual site elements, so long as the modifications do not impact the intent of the approved plan, change land use designations by more than 15%, increase overall density by more than 15%, significantly alter circulation patterns, decrease the amount and usability of open space or recreational areas in a way that impacts adjoining property owners, and substantially affect the location of density use or open space in a way that affects the community. So this kind of comes up in multiple different plans that come up where it's approved by Planning Commission or approved by Council through a PUD regulatory plan. Then they start to get into site construction, and just when you get into that nitty-gritty detail, certain things need to be moved. And before, we'd have to come all the way back through the process. This gives us a little bit of flexibility as staff to review that administratively. So currently, we don't have any self-storage standards outside of the standards for industrial zones, which are pretty much, don't have any architectural standards whatsoever. We do have a moratorium on self-storage. So this was to make as minimal as possible standards to address self-storage. So we really try to take things and narrow it down to a couple of provisions that make the biggest impact. So unloading and loading of storage units shall be oriented towards the side and rear lot line, so it's not the first thing that you see from the road. Self-storage facilities shall only be permitted behind non-self-storage frontage buildings containing office or related uses. This we saw for a development that's coming in, Rise development is there. Also, you see it out on 63 where the deli, there's storage behind it, even though that's on a corner lot, which this we'll talk about here a little bit. But it gives us a usable, economic development driven structure in front where self-storage units can be in the rear, which really don't provide, I mean, they provide a service for our residents, but not necessarily an economic gain for the community. Front facade shall be similar to our other architectural standards for the front. And then the surface of the storage facility that face residential uses shall be designed to suggest commercial use rather than storage. There's not a lot of these situations where industrial land abuts residential land, but there's some. These are some design examples. One's down on Bethany. Rise is the one that's coming in, potentially on Columbia Road, and then some other random. So use regulations, these are just kind of going down to things that we've seen and comments that have come up. Allow educational facility as a conditional use in the GC district. This you see more for church organizations that want to have some type of schooling, and they're located in general commercial, and currently it's not permitted. Front porches shall not have the appearance of a deck and shall be comprised of materials to blend in with front facade. So this we get as a common sense, and you get a lot of calls from neighbors. If someone puts a random sort of looking deck on the front of their residential unit, and it just does not fit into the residential character of the neighborhood. Swimming pool equipment shall be screened from view with landscaping fence or similar materials, and noise from equipment shall not be audible from adjacent properties, and with equipment covers or boxes if needed. This is definitely a result of complaints from residents where people put the pool in and they shove those utilities for the pool like way over by the neighbors there, and we had one recently where it's right by the neighbor's bedroom window, and that's what they hear all night. So, and we don't really have anything in there to say, hey, it should have some type of noise reduction effort. Allow temporary sales in commercial properties from 60 days to 120. This is kind of in response to our request for more food trucks, and right now it's only 60 days per year, so this gives them a little bit of flexibility. In the rear yard, fence running from building to side yard facing the front yard shall not be chain link. We currently don't allow chain link in the front or the side yard. This just kind of addresses that small section in the rear from the side yard to the front so that it fits in with that front standard. So visually, it doesn't look like chain link, and then any other portion of the rear yard can be chain link. This was what also we talked about, was requested for automatic pool covers installed with a retractable rigid cover tested per ASTM standards, are permitted in lieu of a fence for a lot larger than 0.5 acres. So this is for supposedly for larger lot one, so that you do not need a fence around that. And then I forgot we wanted to add hot tubs are not required to be fenced. Currently, our code says they are, and I mean, even I have a hot tub, and it was there before the fence, and it doesn't, so. Yeah, I think that's a little bit much to ask for a fence around every hot tub in the city. Accessory uses in residential urban district, that's the R1U, the sort of denser urban ones. Currently, they have the same standard of 10 feet from all property lines for accessory uses, and that's our #1 variance that comes in. Reducing that down to 5 feet will save property owners a lot of headache. Most of those lots are 40 to 50 feet wide, and you take 10 feet on each side of those, and you're not really giving yourself even room to do a 2-car garage at that point. Allow PUD developments in all districts. There's certain R districts that they're not permitted in right now. This gives the development community and council flexibility. Increase building height in relation to current buildings that we see, and then increase outdoor sales display areas to up to 15% of the building and 15,000 square feet. This is in response to like our Rural King, things like that. So right now it's 2,500 square feet, which is completely unrealistic overall to try to enforce 2,500 square feet at a Home Depot or a Rural King. Some different parking, loading, and access control things to just overall reduce the burden of parking on development standards. So like I said last time, a lot of the parking lots that you see are a result from planners and engineers overthinking it. This takes that and allows the flexibility for developers to design parking areas that are a little bit more towards what they need. So one of them is 25% secondary parking facilities can be gravel parking lot in industrial areas. So that's if it's, we have what secondary parking is defined as parking for vehicle storage, equipment, and loading. So that comes up a lot in our industrial parks, to park trucks and things like that, and reduce the loading space from 20,000 square feet to 50,000. So let them decide how many loading spaces they need as opposed to us telling them what that standard is. Landscaping standards, pretty much reducing them down. We get a bit of complaints from developers on our landscaping standards. So this tries to create a balance with a little bit more flexibility, but still kind of getting our desired effect that we want. So there's a group of them that just reduces it down, even to as simple as appropriate shrub sizes as well, because we're asking for things that are greater than the industry standards right now. And then same with our tree preservation, still keeping sort of the intent on that. I had it a little less, and Planning Commission wanted to make sure we still retain that, but to make it inch per inch. Before, it was actually almost penalizing you for taking out a tree and saying you'd have to put back 2 inches for 1 inch that you take out. This proportionalizes it to the tree inches, and then gives you a lot of more flexibility of where it can go, or if it can be done in the tree fund. Ground mounted signs, 7 feet instead of 6 feet. But actually the tree one came up with Bethel AME, where they didn't have enough room on site and they could put it over in Pleasant Park. And I think we all kind of agree, as long as it's treeing the area, do we necessarily care that it's directly on site? So that's where that one provision came up. 7 feet instead of 6 feet gives a little bit more flexibility for design for folks for signs. And then the use of trees around 50 feet of signs as opposed to a planting bed. Right now we require a planting bed. And frankly, what we're seeing is people don't end up installing it. It's a burden to try to get them to install it. If we can just have them install a tree or two somewhere near the sign, I think that kind of gets the similar intent of greening it without blocking the sign. Architectural design guidelines, we just took everything and combined it into one focus with all similar design requirements, as opposed to having greenfield, infill, all of this stuff, which I think was confusing for everybody. Setback requirements, reduce setback areas in the GC, NC, and professional office gateway if all parking facilities are located to the side or rear of the building. Currently, we have it 50 feet in every district, and by that time, the land's expensive. You're going to use the front of that land to put parking in if you can't put your building there. This gives them the option to put the building closer to the street, put the parking to the side or to the rear. And then extra provisions that if you push it back in our gateway district, which is our entryways from the rural to the urban, any kind of distance that you give with green space in there provides a little bit more flexibility and reduces your landscaping requirements. Here's kind of the example of 741 in Springboro, where they do have more of the parking in the rear. It's still our traditional sort of suburban layout. It just has a cleaner look towards the front. You see outdoor seating in there, and it just has a very clean and nice look. Another development strategy we have is automotive body repair services. Garage doors or parking facilities face the rear or side, or if not, that they're just screened from the right of way. Just kind of where we have right now, no blame on anyone, but like Columbus Avenue right now, and it's just hard to, you see so many vehicles and so random of vehicles because they're doing work on them. It's just hard to find order in that or any type of design standards with that. So this gives us some provisions to do that.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question there? For instance, on Columbus Avenue, we have street trees, then you have the sidewalk, and then there's not really a whole lot of green space beyond that before their parking lot begins. What are you guys thinking would work as a screen for there?
The ones that exist currently would be grandfathered in, so they wouldn't necessarily be affected by this. This would be for future development. So what you would just say is ideally that the building is now allowed to be a little closer to the street. So you'd have that building a little closer like this is, and that parking would be on the side. Mm-hmm. So this would really have to apply for almost a complete redeveloped site or future sites. The ones that we currently have are, like I said, they're grandfathered in, and that's a different sort of battle. Now we're looking at that through the comprehensive plan of like strategies for Columbus Avenue to make improvements, but it's going to be a longer road, I think, with that, because they're allowed to do with what they are doing currently if they're doing it now. This just kind of hopes to prevent kind of the situation we're currently in the future with new development. Same with on-street or off-street parking. We're totally not getting rid of all parking in the front because I still think there's certain businesses with their model, even though some communities are heading that direction. So this is kind of an intermediary sort of step that we say we do not want parking to exceed more than 2 rows of parking with 1 drive aisle. And I give the example where Frisch's has more than 2, and you see a pretty good sized parking lot in front of it. And right next door, you have Huntington, which just has a parking, and a row down the middle, and then the building. It's just a softer look, and then they have parking on the side. So just if you're driving by and kind of noticing the difference between those two, just that small aspect, that if Frisch's were pulled a little bit to the street and had a little more parking in the rear, I think visually we're achieving that gateway district sort of that we're interested in getting to. The other one, last 2 here, is residential off-street parking and driveways in front, not to exceed greater than 50% of the building frontage and our front yard. So this is an example of a project that's coming in. And we're starting to see these a little bit with the transition to, I want to call them downsizing sort of homes. And they're called paired patios. They're pretty much duplex units or attached units. And all those lines that you see up there are driveways attached to the road. So it's just, what this says is a bare minimum, we'd like at least 50% of the front of it to be a front yard, but not to be total parking 100% practically through our residential areas. And it would apply to all residential areas, but I think that's a bare minimum that we can ask to have some green space, where here we don't have that provision, and you can see those little slivers of green space are it. So when you're kind of driving around in this community, it's going to be solid concrete, pretty much. And then in the corner there, another thing is detention basins for residential development not counted towards open space. Right now, we allow our sort of detention basin or detention pits to become towards open space. And you see here what happens, that once that's occupying a vast majority of the percentage, and you're not leaving much room for open space. Now, if they do it as a pond, then we would count that as open space. And finally, kind of a little bit of the out of the box one, fuel pumps restricted to the side or rear yard. Here's kind of an example of that. And then here's an example of it completely where the pumps are totally in the rear. And it's nice with this one, you just walk straight to the main entrance, and then you can go straight out the back, and that's where the pumps are in the rear. So the reason behind this, and we talked about it a little bit, twofold. For one, we think, electric is becoming more and more kind of the norm, and even the city is installing an electric meter at the electric department, and then the Golden Lamb is also installing one. So I think in the future, the way we look at gasoline places, and this may be 10, 20 years, but are going to be a lot more plug-in in your regular parking lot. So we want to make sure our infrastructure that we have. And I give an example of the United Dairy Farmer. It's a beautiful building, and even the one we have on Columbus, they did a great job on the pumps. But imagine if those were switched, and you have that nice building in front, and really for circulation pattern, because they're always on the corner lot, you drive in and you drive back to the pumps and back out. And then last time I also used the one up in Red Lion off 122, that really, had that provision been in here, you would have the church at Red Lion, and then that UDF right there with the kind of a cute little building that they have, and then you drive in the back behind the pumps. It said now you come in, jerk around towards the front, and then you see just nothing but pumps, and then the building. So it would have changed the whole character of that little village of Red Lion had this provision been in place. So with that, the proposed amendments meet kind of our changing conditions. Planning Commission recommended approval of the zoning text amendments on December 15th, and staff recommends approval of the general text amendments. So thank you for your time, and I can take any questions.
I do have one other question. I don't know if it's something Scott can answer or you can answer, but did we ever set in stone where the city is going to install the handicap accessible electric charging station?
So we're pursuing a grant with the EPA to install it in the parking lot of the Lebanon administration building. So we actually just heard this week back from the EPA, we're in the process of reviewing it. So the city's electric vehicle charging station will be there at the corner of Sycamore and Main Street. Golden Lamb, they've actually finished the installation of theirs, and we work with them because their parking lot backs up to a city-owned parking lot off of Sycamore. So their contractor, at their expense, went ahead and put in an additional charging station on the city parking lot there as well. So they actually got a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
That's
good. And ours, just to clarify, ours is handicap accessible, but not limited to handicap.
Correct, yes, correct.
Okay.
Right, yeah, the parking lot is there.
Okay.
I'd like to say these amendments are fantastic. I feel like every single one, you guys have listened to the feedback that we've been getting. With the retention green space, you showed us the drawing of that area. Is the concept about eliminating the retention pond as green space, is that primarily because of this? Or would the rule previous, wouldn't that eliminate the need to eliminate green space?
Yeah, what it's doing and what we're finding, and we saw it a little bit with Autumn Ridge, is it just doesn't count towards their green space. So that 20%, if you think about a site, Autumn Ridge it happened to, theoretically, most sites, especially this is residential subdivisions, is what this applies to. They're going to have some type of natural feature on them, and that's where that normally gets saved. But what happens is that that detention pond is like getting stuck into the natural area, almost. Like they're maybe saving a creek because they don't want to get into the Army Corps.
Yeah.
But right up against that creek is that detention basin. And we're just saying it, in a way, they're cheating the system. It's almost like a necessary utility
Yeah.
that's there. It's not really usable for people. It's either, if it works, it's going to be wet to walk your dog in or do anything like that. It's not saving any natural features, and it's just creating this overall density that I think is just a bit excessive once you take out that useless item that's really eating up 5% of the, maybe, of the, or 7% in this case, maybe of that natural green space.
Okay.
So we're allowing it, we're just saying you can still do a detention basin, you just need to find your make up that 7% of open space somewhere else.
Well, most of the time that's required, right? The retention,
Yes, it's gonna
So-
be required.
yeah.
Yeah, and they could do it in a pond, which I think adds something to the community a little bit and adds like a feature for the residents.
And as a,
who are living there.
like, for development costs, what does that look like? But from building a pond to,
Yeah, that I'm not sure. I mean, it's definitely more expensive.
Yeah.
I know we worked on it like at Four Paws. We were almost going to do a pond up there.
Yep.
And the soil didn't work out well. And I remember, I mean, whether it was 50% more, it was more for sure to do a pond. So, I mean, we're asking them to do a feature that is definitely a little bit more expensive if they're going to use that space, or they would have to take out 2 units on either side of that or something like that to increase their green space. And it's pretty dense. I
Yeah.
think, you know, when this is up here, this is, whether it's 5 acres or something, and on this particular one, in 44 units. So, I mean, it's a dense development, so I think even losing 1 or 2, it's would not, you know, as a community, maybe they would hurt the developer's bottom line on this one, but,
yeah.
you know, as a community. I think
And
it'd be helpful.
I know one thing that people have made mention to me a lot is the tree caliper.
Yeah,
That provision. Could you go over that again
yeah.
for me?
Okay, so what this does is it changes the replacement tree requirement to 1-inch caliper, 1 caliper inch per caliper inch removed with a tree over 18 inches. I had it at like 20 inches, and Planning Commission wanted to keep it at 18, but it's up to your discretion on where that caliper inch starts. In the code book right now, it has like 1/2 inch for some, lower, and then it has it like 1 inch, and then if you get to a 36-inch tree to a 48-inch tree, it goes into 2-inch replacement. And what's happening is you're just getting into these numbers that are pretty big.
Exactly. And that's the feedback that I've gotten, is it just becomes overwhelming to replace some of these trees at that same size. And we're talking thousands of dollars for replacement trees.
Now, we do have provisions and exceptions that are in there that we do look at with staff and try to work with them. If no tree counts within the building footprint or 12 feet outside of the building footprint, then no tree that's within those retention areas that are necessary to be built or utility areas
Yeah.
are required to be returned. So it just happens when you get, the intent, I think, is so that you're just not wholesale, just going in
Exactly.
and randomly just tearing stuff out because it's easier. And I have to say, it does make them look at the site, I think, a little bit more. But we've had a couple recently, and if it went directly by the standards, I mean, it would be 9,000, 10,000, 12,000, but with using those exceptions, I mean, it gets it down to, I think we want to have one for like 2,000 or something like that, or 3,000 for some
Yeah.
pretty good-sized projects.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. So,
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do try to listen and be pragmatic on the suggestions on it,
Yeah.
and things that I've noticed that come up that are just, you know, like this seems like unnecessarily
Yeah.
difficult. So, not that there's still not going to be challenges for people to go through the development process, just because there's a lot of things that go involved with it. But I think whatever we can do from a zoning standpoint to help that out.
Very good.
You know, one thing I can say about you, Greg, is that for those of you that may not know, you will see Greg walking through Lebanon in different areas all the time, just really assessing, taking a look at things and figuring out what needs to be done in areas that could use improvement, things like that. I know people call you to ask your area of expertise if they purchase a place and what they need to do. So I really appreciate your really hands-on, really getting out there and really having a pulse on what's happening within the community. I think you've been a great addition to the city, and your resources really have been great. So I appreciate all your work and your staff's work in all of this.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah. For planning, it's not just one thing. Zoning is not the answer to everything, but it's just one tool.
It's a
in the tool
guideline,
belt,
it's
so.
yeah. All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And we have a second, thank you. All right, moving on to previous business number 1, ordinance number 2020-124.
Ordinance number 2020-124 is an ordinance approving the rezoning of 12.2802 acres of property located at the corner of Cincinnati Avenue and Southwest Street.
Mr. Barca,
This ordinance will approve the rezoning of 12.2802 acres of property located at the corner of Cincinnati Avenue and Southwest Street from light industrial, or L1, to mixed-use PUD as recommended by Planning Commission.
and a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion or comment? The only thing I would say is that through the planning process with many of the neighbors and residents around there, a lot of great feedback, definitely in the process, took into consideration ideas that they had and their feedback and making some changes. So really felt that the process worked really well for that and come back with a plan. I think what we talked about is being proactive and taking a look at the zoning before somebody was to come in and do something that we felt that would be totally inappropriate for that area, and then it would be too late for us to do that. So instead, kind of being proactive to kind of figure out what the best zoning was, so that when somebody did come in, those regulations and those plans would be in place. So I think it's just kind of taking a look at the big picture before we got caught in doing something we really didn't want to do, and that the neighborhood would not be happy, which I would definitely not blame them.
Yeah, and I would say with its proximity to downtown Lebanon, it's
Yeah.
definitely a piece of property that's getting a lot of looks, so I wanted to try to get ahead of it.
Yeah. All right, so we do have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Number 2, ordinance number 2021-002.
Ordinance 2021-001 is an ordinance authorizing the consent to assignment of the development agreement for the property located at 2999 Henkle Drive and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Broca.
This ordinance will approve the assignment of the development agreement for 2999 Hinkle Drive in Lebanon Commerce Center, which is currently occupied by GMI companies.
And I would say this is a motion for a first reading?
No, it has emergency language.
It has emergency, okay. And is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Recuse, conflict of interest.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes. Number 2, ordinance number 2021-002.
Ordinance number 2021-002 is an ordinance approving the purchase of a 2021 Ford F-550 Type 1 medium-duty medic unit and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Broca.
This ordinance will approve the purchase of a 2021 Ford F-550 Type 1 medium-duty medic unit from Horton Manufacturing in the amount of $288,700 $771.80, which will replace an existing medic unit.
And a motion to adopt.
So moved.
And I believe I heard a second. Thank you. Discussion or comment? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Number 3, resolution number 2021-003.
Resolution number 2021-003 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a Clean Ohio Friend NRAC grant to expand bike trails at the Premier Health Atrium Medical Center Bike Park.
Mr. Branca.
This resolution will authorize the city manager to apply for a Clean Ohio Fund NRAC grant to fund the expansion of bike trails in the newly acquired property, which is adjacent to the Premier Health Atrium Medical Center Bike Park, as incorporated in the 2021 operating budget and recommended by the Parks and Recreation Board.
And a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Joe had the second.
Discussion or comment? Please call the roll.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-004.
Ordinance number 2021-004 is an ordinance approving amendments to Chapter 1304 of the codified ordinances providing for building and zoning-related fees.
Mr. Branca.
This ordinance will amend certain fees outlined in Chapter 1304 of the codified ordinances, providing for building and zoning-related fees associated with inspections, plan reviews, and other development-related applications and processes.
And a motion for a first reading.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. We'll see this at our next scheduled meeting. Number 5, ordinance number 2021-005.
Ordinance number 2021-005 is an ordinance approving text amendments to multiple chapters of the official zoning code ordinance.
Mr. Branca.
This ordinance will approve numerous amendments to the official zoning code as it relates to the development review process, site development standards, building design guidelines, landscaping, and other sections of the zoning code as recommended by Planning Commission and as outlined in the public hearing tonight.
And a motion for a first reading.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll see this at our next meeting. Number 6, resolution number 2021-006.
Resolution number 2021-006 is a resolution authorizing the city to request that the county auditor make tax advances during 2021 pursuant to Section 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code.
And a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion or comment? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Number 7, resolution number 2021-007.
Resolution number 2021-007 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a consent agreement with ODOT to perform resurfacing activities along State Route 63.
Mr. Branca.
This resolution will authorize the city manager to enter into a consent agreement with ODOT for them to perform resurfacing activities along State Route 63 within the city corporation limits at their expense. It's just a very small section of State Route 63 right as you enter the corporation limits on the west side.
All right, motion to adopt.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is that still looking like 2023 before that's done?
This is a separate program, so I think what you're
Okay.
referring to is the city urban paving program that they have programmed. This is what they have programmed for the county section or the town section. I think they're planning on doing that this summer. So I think
Okay.
this part of it will be this summer.
Yeah, I just heard a date of 2023 for that. I
Yeah,
guess I was kind of looking for confirmation.
yep.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Resolution number 2021-008.
Resolution number 2021-008 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to limit the water and sewer utility tap fees associated with the Bailey Townhomes project.
Mr. Branca.
This legislation will authorize the city to limit the water and sewer tap fees associated with the Bailey Townhome redevelopment project, which is located at 436 Columbus Avenue, to $132,240 to encourage new investment along the Columbus Avenue corridor. All other kind of permit and tap fees would be applicable to the project beyond the water and sewer tap fees.
And a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion or comment?
And this was the current ones are coming down. Currently,
The existing, yeah, there's two
And it-
existing buildings and a couple houses right at the corner there.
okay, is it on either side of the street that's coming down? Okay, I
Yes.
wouldn't, because one's a brick and I can't think of the other wood. Okay, I just want to clarify that, thank you.
Yep, that's the concept plan that they've submitted. That's
And
what
this,
they're showing.
and this money is what staff has recommended versus what the request was?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
What would their fees have been if we had not capped it?
I think,
I
so
didn't find
this
it.
represents 50%.
Okay,
So
thank you.
just of the water and sewer, this
Right.
is 50% of it. So roughly 260,000.
The only thing I would say is that I'm very glad to see this project happening. I was on council, I've been on council when this project was first built, and it has just, how would I say, it's just it's deteriorated.
And they were
It's
so
been- not
nice.
been completed. Just as the, kind of the project next to it and that transformation of that housing was so much better, and now this, I just think this is going to be just huge and better for those folks that are going to live in it. I just think better housing for individuals in this area. So I think this is definitely needed to have happened. I'm glad to see it.
I kind of wondered that it's kind of slipped complaints because it's tucked away, but if you go back in there.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful when it was built.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a friend that lived there, it was nice.
Yeah.
And it's, I
Yeah.
think if we need to just make sure our code enforcement
Yeah,
in a few years keeps an eye out, make sure it
Yeah.
doesn't get that, the new ones don't get like that.
yeah. All right, please call the roll.
Mayor Brewer.
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe.
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt.
Yes.
Mr. Shope.
Yes.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer.
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Number 9, ordinance number 2021-009.
Ordinance number 2021-009 is an ordinance approving the amendment to the 511 North Broadway Avenue Development Agreement and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Branca.
This ordinance will approve an amendment to the 511 North Broadway Avenue Development Agreement, stipulating the city and developer responsibilities associated with incorporating the 525 North Broadway Avenue property into the overall development plan.
And a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion or comment?
I just had a question on Exhibit B. Both illustrations of Exhibit B. One has the red box in it. I'm sorry, I was unclear on what that represented.
So there's two different scenarios for Exhibit B, and the difference between the two is really how the commercial component of this project gets expanded. So the first, I guess it would be the first page of Exhibit B shows the existing second commercial building that they had originally planned being expanded into the 525 North Broadway property. The red box with the crosshatch represents the potential for some additional expansion, depending on what type of tenant they secure for the building.
All right. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe.
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt.
Yes.
Mayor Brewer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer.
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Shope.
Yes.
Number 10, ordinance number 2021-010.
Ordinance number 2021-010 is an ordinance approving a supplemental appropriation for the general fund to support the amended 511 North Broadway Avenue Development Agreement and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Branco.
This ordinance will approve a supplemental appropriation for the general fund in the amount of $112,500 to support the acquisition of the 525 North Broadway Avenue property as outlined in the amended 511 North Broadway Avenue development plan. And I should point out, I know we presented this to council, but part of that development plan includes providing a expanded shared use access to the 535 North Broadway development, or North Broadway property to the north. So certainly the city's interest is in improving the access and parking for that building to continue our redevelopment efforts.
All right, and a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Thank you. Discussion or comment? Please call the roll.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes. Number 11, ordinance number 2021-011.
Ordinance number 2021-011 is an ordinance approving a development agreement with the Lebanon Brewing Company.
Mr. Branco.
This ordinance will approve a development agreement with the Lebanon Brewing Company for the transfer and exchange of properties located at 535 North Broadway Avenue and 20 West Silver Street, which is our existing fire station, along with other considerations in support of the Lebanon Brewing Company development project and the city's Broadway Avenue corridor redevelopment efforts. So essentially, the city would be acquiring the 535 North Broadway property, which Lebanon Brewing Company currently owns. They would be acquiring our existing fire station once we vacate it and move into the new fire station. They would then open their Lebanon Brewing Company business at the existing fire station. And they also are paying the city $35,000 in cash consideration as well.
All right, and this is just a motion for first reading.
Correct.
So entertain a motion for a first reading. Thank you, and I heard a second. Thank you. We'll see this at our next meeting. All right, no more legislation, so we'll start with the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, so the next meeting of council is a work session. It will be on Wednesday of next week with MLK Day being on a Monday. So hopefully that schedule works, same time, 7 p.m. up in these chambers. And would like to remind folks that the city building will be closed on Monday in observance of MLK Day. And that's all I have.
All right, great, thank you. Councilman Schaefer, anything tonight?
Yeah, first meeting back. I just want to say Happy New Year. Excited to be back. And thanks to all involved in the new Tecumseh Trail Park. Playground is open with nicer, newer equipment and is safer for our little ones. My kids love it.
Okay. Councilor White?
Nothing.
Councilor Michelle?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Vice Mayor Messer?
I just wanted to acknowledge and let everybody know that, that I did include, have Scott include in the packet this past week, proposed language for a Human Relations Commission. So I've had a chance to talk with a few of you about that, and so I wanted to see if anybody had any questions or if you wanted to wait until the work session to discuss it in more detail. So I had included that, and also a comparison of that language with that language in the Shade Tree Commission, which I didn't want to recreate the wheel, so I based it heavily on existing language. That, and also heavily on the language of the resolution that we passed in August that was speaking out against discrimination and racism and all of that.
I think there'll be a discussion next Wednesday.
Next time, okay? Sounds good.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing from me.
Okay, great. That is, I don't have anything this evening, so I will entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Brewer?
Yes.
Mrs. Monroe?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mr. Shope?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Messer?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you for joining our meeting on Tuesday. January 12th, 2021. Look forward to seeing you at our next scheduled meeting. And remember, all of our meetings are open to the public, and everyone is invited to attend. Thank you very much.